This little box of tricks is the Galaxy K Zoom, another well-bred hybrid from the masters of silicon at Samsung. It's a pretty smartphone with a 10 times optical zoom squeezed into its snappy blue-blooded back. The S4 Zoom, Samsung's last attempt at smartphone stroke compact camera fusion, last year's run to the litter, has been transformed into a handsome, stylish top dog. Well, like quite a few of us from the back at least, this one in its sparkly blue whistle and big ocular lens housing, like a Cyclops yuppie going to a trendy dinner party. Sleek, slick, minimal, marvellous. From the front, on the other hand, it's pretty dated, sort of corporate Samsung, chintzy, fake alley frame and lumpy real button. So, in comparison to its older sibling, it's a good looker, and it's better dressed, and much more pocketable than its lumpy comrade, but it's still substantially thicker and heavier than your average smartphone. Not necessarily a bad thing, if you're no fan of size 0 models and like a bit of meat on your bones. To handle, it's not unpleasantly plasticky, but it doesn't feel particularly robust. Time will tell on that one. But the whole thing is a superb piece of engineering, especially the lens. 3 sections to the S4's too, extending from here to here at the touch of a button. I mean, where does it all go? Again, like its compatriot, it's, as a phone, as smart as you like. It does everything it should do without complaint. Calls, texts, Twitters, etc. Unfortunately, it comes loaded with a load of old Samsung cobblers. You know, Samsung apps, Galaxy Essentials, My Magazine, known as bloatware, or as I prefer to call it, please bugger offware. Pointless and irritating and hard to uninstall, but mercifully easy to ignore. It ships with Android's latest incarnation, KitKat 4.4.2, so you can personalise your brains out and bung on all the usuals, you know, Instagram, Chromecast, Ice Age Village. So the phone is what you'd expect, fast, responsive and intuitive. And the 4.8-inch Super AMOLED screen, which is 720 by 1280 pixels compared to its bumpy sidekicks 540 by 960, is very usable. But it has to be said, due to the pixels per inch paradox, not noticeably better than the smaller S4s. And is it really any faster than its under-specs cousin? Well, here's a couple of unscientific tests. You decide. But you'd probably be buying this device over any other for its little appendage here and what it can do for your mobile photography. And a marvellous little protuberance it really is. Alongside its associates and uniquely in the smartphone world, it has this 10 times optical zoom, which works really well, controlled using the volume rocker here. The non-adjustable zoom speed is noticeably slower than the S4's, and some would say that's not a bad thing. But the zoom is still a little choppy, great for reframing but not so clever for smooth video zooms. The shutter button is very nicely placed and weighted, and due to the absence of the useless zoom ring option and volume rocker zoom control, the whole thing is much easier to handle. The Xenon flash is superb, and open up the menus and there's a cornucopia of settings and filters and suggestions to jizz up your photos. And plenty of manual control too. From a white balance you can set in Kelvin, not sure Kelvin would be too happy about that, to a fully manual mode where you can mess about with the shutter speed, aperture, ISO and a load more. The spec on the lens and software on both devices is very similar, but while the S4 has to settle for a miserable 16 megapixels, the K is packing 20. So does this make a huge difference to the pictures? Well, I'm not sure. Here's a few comparison shots. You decide. The The 1920x1080 video has been cranked up to 60 frames per second and produces nice realistic pictures, while the sound quality is warmer and, well, just better than the S4's. But are the pictures better? Is there really that much difference? Here's a few comparison shots. You decide. So, notwithstanding the feeble battery life, it's a beauty, but I do have a couple of annoyances with it. They've reassigned the menu button here to do what a long press on the home button used to do, namely show your app history. This affects other apps which used to but can no longer utilise this button, so it's confusing, pointless and dopey. Leave the standard buttons alone. Furthermore, the camera swipe shortcuts on the lock screen is only available if you use the swipe only lock. If you use any of the other lock screen options, which is pretty essential as otherwise this will come on in your pockets, there's no shortcuts. That's bad. You can open the camera from any lock screen by pressing the shutter button and up rocker here at the same time. Well, sometimes this is a really hit and miss affair. You've got to press them just right. And if you do manage to open the camera from here, it opens with the mode button, your doorway to the bucket full of effects, filters and photography gizmos greyed out, meaning you have to close it again and open it, say, like this, and voila, there's your mode button. That's a bit rubbish. Meanwhile, in the gallery, the pictures don't auto-rotate. You have to tap it, tip it a little, then catch this little button as it lights up and before it slides away to rotate your pictures. Really? Hopeless. These gripes aside, this is a very usable and versatile device. Incidentally, if you get one of these, you can rig it up to a microphone and do vox pop interviews in the street. Excuse me, madam, may I ask you a question?
Certainly, young man.
What do you think of the Samsung Galaxy K Zoom?
Well, I think the jury's out on that one at the moment, don't you?
So, there you have it, nutshelled. After the S4 Zoom ugly duckling incident, this is a very fine bird indeed. It's a slick, sleek, girthy, very pocketable, fast and glitch-free smartphone, and due to this magnificent piece of engineering here, a superbly usable and feature-rich compact camera. But it has lost some of its youthful charm along the way when it acquired its long trousers. I mean, due to the thankful omission of the useless zoom ring here on the K Zoom, it can no longer do this. And as there is no tripod thread, it can't do this. Or more importantly, as it has no IRB or infrared blaster, it can't do this. Possible deal breaker there. But all in all, it's an absolute Brahma. Probably the best thing to come out of the Korean peninsula since the mighty Psy and Gangnam Style. Excuse me, madam, may I ask you a question?
Certainly, young man.
What do you think of the Samsung Galaxy K Zoom? Excuse me, madam.
Yes, young man?
Do you mind if I ask you a question?
Certainly. Yes?
May I ask you a question?
Certainly.
Excuse me, madam.
Hello, yes?
Excuse me, madam, may I ask you a question?
No.
Thank you.